Hello friends, YouTube and motorcycle enthusiasts. This is Accelerate, making another video as I ride fearlessly into the sun. Just trying to get some riding in. Been busy today, trying to get stuff done at the house, my wife and I, so I wanted to get out and get a little bit of two-wheel action going. You know, it's about my handy clock tells me it's 7:35, so the sun will be going down here in a little bit. Not too cold out, luckily. It's been quite nice. So I wanted to make this video and talk about suspension, motorcycle suspension, and the 5 reasons why you should adjust your motorcycle suspension. So reason number one is safety. You know, a lot of suspension, even the most mundane motorcycles, come with adjustable suspension from the factory. Now, the amount of adjustability that you get is going to depend on the bike and what it's purposed for and things like that. But most motorcycles come with a form of adjustable suspension. And the main reason that you should spend time adjusting your static sag, the rebound and compression with both the front forks as well as the rear shock and a spring for that matter, for the static sag, is safety. The reason for that is because the bike is so much more predictable. Now, you got to realize whenever you start thinking about adjustable suspension, a lot of folks that are novice get into motorcycling. You know, they think of cars with coilover suspension or race suspension that's fully adjustable to squeeze out every bit of performance from that vehicle. And when they get into motorcycling, a lot of times they don't, you know, they kind of have that stigma that, well, you know, the bike is, whether it's a cruiser or it's, you know, I'm not out here to drag me and push to the limits. But what they don't realize is that with a vehicle, with a car, you know, your average modern vehicle weighs around 3,000 pounds, give or take, with cars getting much more heavier as time progresses. So 3,000 to even 3,700, 4,000 pound vehicle, your weight as a passenger has very little input on the vehicle itself. Unlike a motorcycle, where, you know, your weight makes up a third to sometimes half or more of the motorcycle, depending on what you're riding. So the weight of the rider plays a very large role in how the suspension is supposed to work. So safety is huge. You want the bike to be predictable. You know, whenever you do things like hard braking, like so, you know, you want the front forks and the way the suspension compresses to be predictable. Whenever you know, if you have to swerve suddenly to get out of the way of a vehicle or an animal or something like that, some sort of road hazard, then, you know, you want to have that confidence in the bike is performing the way it's supposed to, which ultimately makes it more safe. You know, braking, acceleration, predictability, swerving, all that plays a role whenever you have suspension that's been set up for you, right? So the number 2 reason why you should adjust or take the time to adjust your motorcycle suspension is fun, which seems kind of silly, but it's true. I don't know if any of you veteran riders out there have ever ridden a motorcycle that just was not confidence inspiring. It did not handle the way you expected it to. It was unpredictable, or it just maybe felt wobbly, or unsure, not sure-footed in the turns, that greatly affects. But you could love everything else about the motorcycle. I love the way it the power. I love the way it looks. But it just handles weird for whatever reason, or whenever I push it in a turn, it's the rear end's loose, and I don't like that. Whatever the characteristic may be, that instantly saps the fun out of the motorcycle. So whenever you ride a bike that's more, that is confidence inspiring, that it truly feels like an extension of yourself, then you are having more fun. You can ask any of these guys out there, anybody that rides motorcycle for long periods of time, or have ridden for a long period of time in their life, a lot of people know what they like. They don't waste time, they don't waste their hard-earned money on a bike that's not going to give them the joy and satisfaction that they get from the hobby. So, I know with my FZ09, the bike's fantastic. Every time I take it out, it's just so much fun. Now, whenever I first got it, the suspension wasn't set up correctly. It wasn't set up correctly for me as a rider. I think the dealership tweaked it a little bit from the factory. The factory, it's virtually null. Rebound and compression's backed all the way out on the forks. So the dealer took it upon themselves to probably set it up to what they thought would be, close to my weight. And they did an okay job, but it still wasn't quite right. So, whenever I was out and about riding, I noticed it right away. So I took the time to set up the suspension. And that brings me to number 3. Looks like I'm coming into a burn zone here. This is pretty intense. Let's see how this smoke affects me. I got some people behind me. Maybe I'll just close my vents. Yeah. Oh man, this is exciting. I can feel the heat off that too. It's crazy. Very cool. Yeah, I do a lot of controlled burns around here to keep the forest fires down. So, as I was saying, it brings me to number 3, performance. Now, this doesn't always, not everybody, this doesn't always ring true for everyone, or not everybody takes this into consideration. Because, a lot of people that ride motorcycles they're not really concerned about performance. But you got to realize that a lot of these these reasons that I'm listing, they go hand in hand. Whenever your bike can handle the way you want it to, whenever it's predictable, it brakes the way you want it to, now it's more safe, right? So the performance is increased and the motorcycle does what it's supposed to do, which of course makes it more safe and it makes it more fun, so on and so forth. So, with all that in mind, now if you're talking about somebody that goes to the track, that's whenever setting up your motorcycle suspension is absolutely paramount, because you're at the track, you're spending your money, your time, you're going out there to have fun and push the bike to its limits, or at least push yourself to your limits. If the bike suspension is set up, you will get more performance from the motorcycle. And I'm not talking about just handling, braking as well, even power. The bike, how the bike is controlled, the bike rests completely on the suspension of the front and rear tire. So performance is a big one, especially for you junkies out there that want to get more performance out of your bike. Definitely take the time to set up the suspension, do your research, and find out more about it. Which brings me to number 4. So the number 4 reason you should set up your motorcycle suspension is you paid for it. Why not set it up? You already spent the money. Whenever you went to the dealership, you paid for the suspension. You paid for the tire. You paid for the brakes. You paid for the tires. You paid for the suspension. You paid for the motor. You paid for the tire. You paid for the suspension. You paid for the tire. 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 You paid for the tire or went to that individual that was selling their bike and bought this motorcycle, if you didn't pay for one wheel, you paid for a bike with two wheels. You didn't pay for a bike with half the horsepower. You paid for a bike with the horsepower of what you wanted, right? And whenever you bought that bike, whenever you purchased it, you purchased every feature that it has to offer, including the suspension. So whenever you bought it, doesn't matter what bike it is, more than likely there's some adjustability to the suspension. Now I can say that my wife, as many of you know, rides a 2015 Honda Shadow 750, one of the most docile bikes as far as cruisers are concerned. It's a really cool bike, not performance oriented whatsoever. However, it has adjustable suspension. Now it doesn't have a lot of adjustability, but what you can adjust is the compression and rebound of the front forks and the rebound of the rear shock. That's fantastic. We paid for the bike. We can get that bike dialed in and to do more of what it should do because we paid the money for it. Manufacturers know these things, right? They know that technology moves forward. A lot of people just don't take the opportunity to set up the suspension, or they don't think of it or think it's important, but yet they'll be the first one to say, oh man, I'm so glad that bike has anti-lock brakes. Well, anti-lock brakes, that's just another feature of the bike, and you're not adjusting the suspension. What good are anti-lock brakes? You know what I'm saying. I don't mean that one substitutes for the other, but I'm just saying that it's a feature of the bike. You paid for it. Do it. And the number 5 reason that you should set up your motorcycle suspension is because it will make you a better rider. I'm trying to think of which road to take. Oh yeah, it's this one. It will make you a better rider. Now, why would having predictable, personalized suspension make you a better rider? Well, that question should really just answer itself, right? Because whenever your bike does what you want it to do, it heightens your senses. You get used to a bike that is confidence inspiring, like I've been saying, and it's an extension of yourself. Whenever you think of something, it does it. Now, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Say if you're, I don't know, many people out there that shoot guns. Now, if you have a gun that's customized to you, it's going to make you a better shooter, right? Because you're going to be focusing on the fundamentals and not any kind of wonky thing that may be happening with the device. Riding motorcycles is the same thing. You're going to be focusing on your fundamentals, the things that you should be doing to make the bike handle and ride the way you want, and not have to worry about some weird thing that's happening and the bike's not doing what it's supposed to. Or, whenever I push it hard and I always get this weird wobble. Well, maybe there's a time when you need to push it harder. Whenever I brake hard, it always wants to lock up the front. If the suspension's not tuned correctly, you're subconsciously you learn those faults, and whenever it comes crunch time, you're going to hesitate. So focusing on the fundamentals, having a bike that's predictable and does what it's supposed to do is going to make you a better rider. So there you have it, folks. And I learned a new road. This is a road my buddy recommended to me. It really is nice. I wish I would have started a little earlier in the day. But nonetheless, I'm going to put some links in the description to some sites on how to set up motorcycle suspension. Now, remember, street and track are often two different setups. And, anybody with hand tools and basic knowledge can do this. You can get it really close. I encourage you all to do the research, take the time to set up the suspension and, see where it goes. See if the work that you put in on doing it pays off. So I hope everybody has a fantastic week. It's supposed to be sunny, so hope you get out there on two wheels. Once again, this is Accelerate, signing off.